give this to first to Secretary Dominguez, then to Secretary Chua. Sani, you have the floor.
President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, distinguished members of the Cabinet, good evening. I would like to start by saying that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine does not involve us directly. However, because neither Russia nor Ukraine is a major trading partner of ours. Instead, the Philippine economy will likely be collateral damage. It is as if we are hit by a ricocheting bullet. These indirect shocks are likely to be felt through four major channels. Is there a slide? Yeah, four major channels. The commodity market, the financial market, investments, and the impact on our fiscal health. First, oil and food prices are expected to go up as Russia is the largest exporter of natural gas and wheat, trigo, okay? While Ukraine is the fourth largest exporter of corn. As the conflict continues, Ukraine and Russia's main trading partners, predominantly the European Union, will look to trade with other countries such as US and China, where we are buying both wheat and corn, thereby pushing up the prices of commodities in these markets as well. Second, the conflict will also likely cause a surge in interest rates or cost of borrowing, which was already expected to go up even prior to the crisis because of the US Fed's tightening monetary policies. The conflict will increase the perception of risk in investments. Third, investments are likely to decline or at least be on hold in the face of uncertainty, which may cause investors from the West to be more conservative or postpone their planned investments. Once sanctions are imposed, it will take a long time for investor and consumer confidence to return to normal. Lastly, all the aforesaid economic impacts will likely require government support to protect our vulnerable citizens and the critical sectors most affected by the crisis, and this will stretch our budget even further. However, I would like to emphasize that we do not expect this crisis to last very long. However, there may be some lingering effects. We have seen similar crises in the past, such as the Gulf War in 1990, the Asian financial crisis in 1997, the oil price shock of 2008, and also the first Russia-Ukraine conflict in 2014. And we have weathered all of these crises very well. We have experienced crises whose effects were more severe and direct to the economy, such as the Asian financial crisis in 1997 and the global financial crisis in 2008. This crisis lasted much longer, and yet we were able to get through them. Based on these experiences, we are confident that we have the tools and the preparation necessary to help our people through this crisis. The following presentation of Secretary Chua will outline the Economic Development Cluster's recommendations to address these potential shocks. This crisis may increase prices across several sectors and thereby cause our inflation rate to breach our target, but with the measures that we discussed at the Economic Development Cluster, and which Secretary Chua will present, we are confident that we will be able to keep the inflation within our target range of 2 to 4% and maintain our growth path of 7 to 9% this year. So can I ask Carl to go through the details?
Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much, Secretary Dominguez. Good evening, Mr. President and members of the Cabinet. The Economic Development Cluster of Cabinet met this afternoon, and we are proposing 14 measures to alleviate the impact of the crisis on the people. So let me go through each of the 14 items. The first is on the overall economy, is to shift to alert level 1 at the soonest possible time for the entire country and open all the schools for face-to-face learning to increase our domestic economy and offset the external risk. So while we cannot prevent the risk from coming from the global perspective, we can strengthen our domestic economy to provide the people with more jobs and opportunities. The second one on gasoline and diesel, as you know, the price of gasoline and diesel has went up so much, no? So we are proposing the following interventions. The first is to increase fuel subsidy program for public utility vehicles from the already announced 2.5 billion to 5 billion. So we will double the subsidy. And the first tranche will be given in March and the second tranche in April. Number 2 is to continue working with the private firms on promotional discount of oil companies up to 1 to 4 peso per liter discount. So this will help alleviate additional for the jeepneys and the other PUVs. Number 3 is to increase our buffer stock of petroleum from the current 30 to 45 days. This will require a law that we can work with Congress. The fourth is to provide additional fuel vouchers for agricultural producers, and we will increase the budget from 500 million to 1.1 billion. The first tranche we will give in March, the second tranche in April. And by that time, we will have additional revenues to fund these subsidies. Going further, number 5 is to promote energy conservation everywhere in the private sector or in government offices. Number 6 is to suspend or remove the pass-through fees that are being charged by LGUs, industrial parks, or subdivisions for deliveries, for truckings, and so on. Number 7 is to fully implement the service contracting, the subsidy that we give to, for instance, the buses to operate, and to expand it to all public transport routes. Number 8 is to promote e-vehicles and expand access to charging stations. And number 9 is to aggressively promote active transport, including bicycles. Now, many people are using LPG or liquefied petroleum gas. What we propose is to increase our buffer stock from the current 7 to 15 days. So when we expand the buffer stock, we can ensure more adequate supply and meet demand in case there is a global shortage. And this will require a new law. The next one is on coal. We use coal to power, I think, half of our power generation. And we propose to expand supply and reduce price as a result by reducing the most favored nation or MFN tariff rate, which is currently 7% to 0 temporarily until December 2022. So the effect people will feel is pass-through of lower power charges, and to maintain our buffer stock at the current 30 days minimum because we have sufficient inventory. Let me now go to the fifth recommendation for electricity. We propose as gasoline and diesel alike to promote energy conservation, including the use of sensor technology for energy saving. So once we are, for instance, overlighted, we can cut down the use of light. The next is to stagger the increase in generation charge. And I understand the power companies have agreed to this in the report of Secretary Cusi. And then number 3 and 4 is to allow foreign ownership in microgrid, solar, wind, and tidal energy. This would require revision of the IRR. This will allow more players to come in and to offset our need for more coal, which is already 3 or 4 times more expensive. And now let me go to the food side. Number 6 is our support to the overall agriculture sector, because one of the transmission, apart from energy, Mr. President, is the food. So we will implement vigorously the Plant, Plant, Plant program, Part 2, subject to the availability of funds, and provide targeted fertilizer vouchers to farmers, and to discuss with our bilateral partners on possible additional supply of fertilizers, which is needed for production in agriculture. Let me now go to number 7, which is rice. The Department of Agriculture has agreed to closely monitor rice inflation, and the National Food Authority to closely monitor the buffer stock. We will also help the local government units increase their buffer stock, so to ensure we have adequate supply in each province. And the Land Bank of the Philippines, LBP, and the Development Bank of the Philippines will provide concessional loans or funding for working capital, particularly in the procurement of post-harvest facilities and warehouses. We will also accelerate the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund implementation and other parts of the National Rice Program in the budget so that we increase local production. Now, should the local production not be enough, we will temporarily import to keep prices low and make sure we have adequate rice for all Filipinos. So we propose to facilitate the continuous release of the sanitary and phytosanitary import clearances, especially for the shipment that will arrive in the lean season of July. Kasi yung gitna ng April and August is the, October rather, is the lean season. While waiting for the harvest, we may need more import. And we propose to expand supply and reduce price by extending the 35% tariff rate until December 2022. Mr. President, you have issued an executive order for this, but it will expire in June so that we maintain a good supply of rice and keep the prices low. We propose its extension. Let me now go to number 8 on corn. Corn is important as feed for poultry, for livestock. So we propose to expand supply and reduce the price by lowering the most favored nation tariff rate to 5% in quota and 15% out quota, and allow a minimum access volume where they can avail of the lower tariff rate of 4 million metric ton until the end of the year. So this is temporary to ensure that we have adequate feed so that we can buy chicken and pork in a cheaper price. And we will import more feed wheat and produce more cassava because these are substitutes for feeds for chicken and for pigs, for instance. Number 9 on pork, we still have the African swine fever, but we are slowly recovering. We propose that to ensure a lower price of pork and adequate supply, we extend the lower tariff rate of 15% in quota and 25% out quota with a MAV or minimum access volume of 200 metric ton until December 2022. Presently, Mr. President, may EO tayo until May, but we deem it is necessary to extend this to ensure lower price for the people and adequate supply. We also propose to accelerate the release of imported pork from the cold storage. So marami pong na-import na pork, but we have to release it for the people's consumption, especially outside NCR. We propose also to pass the livestock and dairy bill now pending in the Senate kasi ito yung tutulong talaga sa hog raisers and to increase our dairy production. And finally, to remove all the non-tariff barriers that prevent the smooth or proper importation of pork. Number 10 is on fish. We have a big shortage of fish. So we propose the issuance of a CNI or a certificate for the necessity to import small pelagic fish from the ocean tulad ng galunggong from the second quarter to the fourth quarter. Our estimate is we need it to fill an additional 140,000 metric ton because we have a supply gap of 200,000 metric ton. So yung na-release na import allocation is 60,000. So we need to increase this. So the end result is adequate supply so that the people can have lower price for fish and also to remove all other non-tariff barriers. Let me now go to number 11 on chicken. We propose, bilisan natin, accelerate the release of the sanitary and phytosanitary clearances from the National Meat Inspection Service, cold storage warehouses, so that we can increase yung inventory and supply. Kasi hindi pa tayo umaabot sa pre-COVID-19 pandemic level. So mayroon pa tayong shortage sa chicken. And the people who eat chicken, for instance, Chicken Joy, nafe-feel nila tong crunch and the higher price. Number 12 po sa sugar, we have to address a court temporary restraining order that prevent us from pursuing yung sugar import natin. And the economic team has proposed that we allow direct importation by the industrial users, yung mga food manufacturers, beverage manufacturer, on a 1-to-1 ratio. So they will buy 50% from the domestic to help our farmers, pero kulang po yan, so we have to import the extra that is needed so that we can help our food producers also. Number 13 on wheat, no, this is needed for bread production, for pasta, spaghetti, is to expand our sources of wheat, and India is offering to provide, for instance, an additional supply of wheat. We have a project, yung Pinoy Tasty Project, so that we promote and buy local bread na masarap naman, and we promote non-wheat flour substitute, such as yung Sagip Nutri flour na gawa sa cassava, sweet potato, mongo, and banana flour. All of these are meant to ensure that we have adequate bread at affordable prices. And finally, Mr. President, since itong renewable energy and agriculture napakahalaga sa atin, we propose that we include it in the Strategic Investment Priority Plan under the Board of Investment para mabigyan ng sapat na attention, may investors na pumasok para i-increase yung supply ng ating pagkain at yung energy. So, Mr. President, this is the recommendation of the Economic Development Cluster to alleviate the impact of the Russia-Ukraine crisis on the people, notably yung pagtaas ng presyo ng pagkain, kuryente, gasolina at diesel. Yan lang po. Maraming salamat.
Carl, given the time that we are here for the time being, I'd like to know if we could come up immediately with the enabling law sa recommendations mo.
Mr. President, in terms of the subsidies, no, we have it already in the budget, so we will implement it immediately. In terms of the tariff reduction po, since Congress is not in session, we will submit a request for the issuance of an executive order. And there are dalawa lang po na kailangan ng batas. We will prepare it immediately so that Congress can consider it immediately when they return in May for a session.
Yes,
We will work hard on this. Thank you.
We have a long haul sa walang trabaho. Days that Congress is not functioning. I wonder if we can have that the laws that you want to be enacted to support your recommendation. Yun lang ang ano ko doon. Given the time that we stay here, that we can act on it on our own. Baka lalampas na yun sa kabila. And I just hope that they would, read your study very carefully.
Mr. President, if the situation escalates, we could recommend a special session if mag-escalate po.
Mas mabuti pa okay? Pag-isipan na lang natin yan. Bingbong siguro, Will. Tignan mo daw, Bong, para mapaasa natin. Para, alam mo, so there's gonna be an election. At after there will be euphoria. Then nobody's really focusing on anything except yung pagpalit ng tao, kung ano, reorganization dito, changing of the guards. So that would eat a lot of time. And itong recommendations ng NEDA is really vital to keep the economy humming for a few months. More so that there is, I think, baski na mahinto ito, the fractured economies already in Europe would affect us more or less by next year. Nandiyan na yan. Hindi nga towards the end of the year. So,
We will just coordinate with
prangka-prangkahan na lang natin yung Congress. This is intended really for the welfare of the people. If you have the time, sit with us and we can discuss it. Otherwise, you're on your own. Kung hindi ibaliwala ninyo itong pinag-aralan na ng outgoing administration.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright, and for the first time in a long time I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I'm not falling. I'll push all my chips and call all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear destiny and it's calling. I'll keep my head up high through the downs and lows, and we're all going in life. Still nobody knows, but I'ma choose what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. Back a year ago.